Cliffhangers by Rarely Funny. Read by a bag of Vicodin. I abhor imbalance. Symmetry pleases me. There is a beauty in equality, in matching halves, in even distribution. I could, I suppose, tilt the scales any which way I wanted, but that's easy. I don't like easy. I like balance. Scorpion, you're up, I said, tapping on my communicator. Cliff is the one in the plaid shirt, dark pants, backpack slung over his shoulder. Scorpion sprang into action. He was a Class C supervillain, but that was mainly because he was unmotivated. He had potential, and all he needed was a firm hand to guide him. Scorpion erupted out of the ground, stingers at the ready, poison pulsing and primed for release. The civilians scattered, screaming at Scorpion's unnecessarily grand entry. Cliff whipped off his disguise, took up a defensive stance, and warded off Scorpion's opening gambit at the last second. Blows and parries, strikes and deflections. Cliff was good, one of the rising stars in the league, a Class A in the making. He was an above-average pugilist, a shrewd planner, and charismatic to boot. But those qualities were not what made him overpowered, were not what instigated my intervention. It was his superpower, and the blatant abuse of it. Now, I said, as the two blurring shapes swirled around each other on the sidewalk, evenly matched. Force his hand. Scorpion nodded, just slightly, as he leapt backwards, escaping Cliff's effective range. He extended a claw, pulled a cowering civilian out from where she'd been taking refuge behind an overturned car. Her neck seemed so very brittle in his grip. "Let's see what you do about this, Cliff. Hanger!" I felt the jolt, that little spark of electricity run through me. My eyes were trained on the monitor, tracking Cliff's every move, but there was a disconnect all the same, a juddering of reality. My pulse raced. I was correct about the nature of his powers. Cliff's arm was a blur as he flung a handful of coins at an obtuse angle. The dime ricocheted off a lamppost, the quarter bounced off the dime, the penny accelerated as it collided with the quarter. That single disc of metal twirled through the air, then landed right in the crick of Scorpion's claw, preventing it from closing. "Unhand her, you devil!" yelled Cliff. "Your fight is with me!" It was a form of time travel, a form of concentrated chrono-manipulation. I had no idea who imparted these powers to him, or trained him in such execution. But it was clear that this was exactly how Cliff had managed to shoot up the rankings, defeat supervillains more experienced and more deadly than he should have been able to handle. My projections were that if Cliff were not stopped, the coven of supervillains would be decimated inside of a year, and that did grave injustice to my sensibilities of balance. "Illusionist, disenchant!" I growled. "Electro, advance from his blind side!" The sweet scent of roses filled the air as the woman in Scorpion's grasp melted away into 1,000 scarlet butterflies, fluttering and taking flight. Cliff's face fell as the understanding dawned. He had exerted his powers wantonly, carelessly, contriving to save a mere trick of the light which had not been in any sort of danger at all. He didn't have time to wallow, though, for Electro, another Class C supervillain who had tasted defeat at Cliff's hands before, shot out from an alleyway, thunderbolts primed to strike. As Cliff and Electro dueled, I pricked up my ears, straining hard to hear. And I heard it. The sweet, sweet chorus of 1,000 groans, crossing the membranes of our universe, filtering over to this existence. The dismay brimming in those tones was unmistakable. My plan was working, and I could not help but grin. "Now!" I yelled, buoyed by the thrill of victory which lay whiskers away. "Force his hand! Again!" Electro obeyed, and in a show of miscalculation, lobbed 2 streaks of lightning away from Cliff, towards a puppy which had been skulking in the background, waiting out the showdown. A fully grown ox would have melted under that attack, and the puppy's chances of survival were very much negligible. "Cliff, hanger!" That rippling unease again, as reality was torn apart and then stitched back together. This time, Cliff had punched a hole in the ground, sending out shockwaves which opened a crevice under the mongrel, altering its position just enough for the bolts to zing by harmlessly. At my command, the puppy again disintegrated into a showering storm of fireworks, melting away like the morning mist. Again, the ominous rumble of discontent, rolling in like the unceasing waves of an angry, hungry high tide. Venom Rage, a Class B this time, who assailed Cliff from behind, leaving Cliff no room to retreat. Cliff, hanger! But that was merely a feint, a distraction. Venom Rage was nothing but another mirage I had employed. Spizzlefire, another Class B, entered the fracas, conjuring fountains of flames which threatened to destroy the adjacent old folks' home. Cliff, hanger! Just another first-rate illusion. Cliff, hanger! Cliff, hanger! Cliff, hanger! I saw the toll this was taking on Cliff. He had long grown pale, haggard, the veins popping up under his pallid skin. His powers were, contrary to popular belief, not unlimited. They depended on there being a satisfying payoff, were fueled by an interdimension expectation of great wit overcoming immense odds. Every time Cliff used his powers, only for it to be revealed that they had been employed in vain, a mere distraction from the tedium of the ordinary, his benefactors dwindled, slowly but surely. What point was there in returning when the insurmountable threat repeatedly turned out to be silly or vacuous? It was only a matter of time before he jumped the shark. Cliff, hanger. Halt, I said, and all the supervillains on the scene froze, awaiting my next command. I jabbed at the buttons on my command panel, and my hidden camera zoomed in onto the once proud figure, who was now crumpled on the pavement, leaking tears of frustration and shame. There had been no disjoint of reality this time, no shift in space-time. He invoked his powers again, louder, with a voice torn to shreds. But his audience had left, no longer captive, no longer interested. The illusion I had set up, a violent rampage munching on a kitten, completed its act of savagery, yet there was no intervention from Cliff. He's depowered, I said, as the gaggle of villains hooted in celebration. My work is done. Balance had been restored. Thank you for listening.